back for another bite. Hey there, welcome back to another review, this time of Carnosaur 2. Extinction is a thing of the past. The sequel to Carnosaur. Now, yeah, I guess Carnosaur was a pretty big hit for New Horizons, so they decided to make a sequel. And stay tuned for the rest of the review to see what my thoughts on this sequel are. Carnosaur 2 is a film released in 1995, and it's written by Michael Palmer. It features cinematography by John B. Aronson. It's edited by Roderick Davis and Lauren Morris, and it features a score by Ed Tomney, and it's directed by Luis Morneau. The cast is made up out of John Savage as Jack Reed, Cliff DeYoung as Tom McQuaid, Don Stroud as Ben Kahane, Rick Dean as Monk Brody, Ryan Thomas Johnson as Jesse Turner, Arabella Holzog as Sarah Rollins, Miguel A. Nunez Jr. as Ed Moses, Neith Hunter as Joanne Galloway, and Guy Boyd as Joe Walker. And that is the cast and crew of Carnosaur 2. At the Yucca Mountain Nuclear Waste Repository, repair crews are puzzled to find power cables ripped out from the ceiling. Meanwhile, a young hacker boy named Jesse is caught trying to steal dynamite. His uncle bails him out, and a workman teaches him how to operate a forklift, which contains a remote control to open the door to a deep elevator shaft. And that night, an animal appears at the repository's mess hall and kills everyone but Jesse. You don't really see it, you just see people fly into things and get flown over tables, because this is a low budget movie, so they can't really afford to show the animal, or the dinosaur in this case, actually eat the people. But yeah, it's pretty funny because you see how small this raptor or this Deinonychus is, and you're like, how is this thing throwing people around like they're Kane from the WWE, just doing clotheslines and shit. It's kind of funny, actually. Supposed to be tragic and shocking, but people are just getting whoa. It's almost slapsticky. And when communications from the repository cease, a group of technicians and scientists are called on to investigate the power shortages. The facility, once a uranium mine, laboratory, and refinery, has become a classified government facility, and the investigators find the place deserted and discover traces of a struggle in the mess hall. Some blood and some other things. And the three go to the control room and try to reboot the computer system, while the other three form a search party. They manage to locate Jesse, who's catatonic and in a state of shock. They take him back to the control room and demand answers from Major Tom McQuaid, played by Cliff DeYoung, the head of the mission, who evades their questions, and when they demand to leave, he refuses and orders them back to work, despite their continuing problems with communications equipment. And the main crew then heads down to a lower level to investigate the situation while the pilot, Galloway, and computer expert Moses stay in the control center with Jesse. On the lower level, the crew gets more and more suspicious, but McQuaid continues to act as if he knows nothing. And then the crew finds a huge tooth, which seems to bother him. And then something drags a horrified Kahane down a tunnel and kills him. And the crew then flee back to the control room, realizing that McQuaid has been up to something after all. Jesse, listening in on their radio chatter, realizes what happened and flees the room just before a velociraptor appears and eats Moses. Galloway witnesses the attack and heads for the helicopter, with the rest of the crew at her heels. Galloway then starts up the helicopter, but before the crew can reach her, a velociraptor in the back seat attacks her. Galloway loses control and crashes a chopper, stranding the crew. The group then returns to the control room, kept safe by heavy metal doors. There they finally learn of the dinosaur's origins from McQuaid. A brilliant genetic scientist working for a poultry company went mad and decided to wipe out all of humanity by using a virus made by prehistoric DNA to impregnate first the birds, then human females with dinosaurs. Basically the plot from the first movie. And then the government narrowly contained the situation, but kept some of the eggs for analysis, storing them in the plant to be hidden. Unfortunately, the eggs hatched and killed off the entire crew, and the electrical damage is putting the planet at risk of a meltdown. Left with no choice, McQuaid organized the mission to prevent the meltdown and save the dinosaurs for research. And the crew, unsympathetic to McQuaid, decided to blow up the dinosaurs with the dynamite Jesse found in a storeroom on the lower levels, leaving McQuaid and Rawlins behind with Jesse. McQuaid chases after them, knocking out Monk, but is beaten after a brief fight because it's Clifty Young. And McQuaid finally explains that he was trying to stop them from going into the facility's lower levels because radiation from a secretly stored nuclear waste and warheads is leaking out and containment will eventually fail completely. And Jesse comes up with the idea of crashing the computers to send the site into emergency mode, which should get an evacuation squad to come and rescue them. And once Jesse is able to get the code and the plan is put into place, the group begins making its way back to the surface. They continue using dynamite to hold off any dinosaurs while getting to the elevator. And while they're going up, a raptor gets on top of the elevator and seizes Rawling and eats her. Pretty gory scene, too. Pretty good effect. And Monk and McQuaid then get injured, so they stay behind with their dynamite, sacrificing themselves to kill the remaining raptors. Jesse and Jack, now on their own, continue making their way up. Jack, however, has taken a long fall and is injured. Jesse runs outside to find the evacuation team waiting, and he tries to get them to go back for Jack, but they refuse, so he runs back in himself and encounters a T-Rex. He manages to retrieve Jack and get him outside to the rescue helicopter just as the T-Rex bursts out and bites the head off of one of the rescue crew. Jesse then runs back again and gets in the forklift from the opening. Using the forklift remote, he opens the door to the shaft and wrestles the dinosaur with the forklift, eventually weakening it enough to push it down the shaft. And then Jesse and Jack then fly off in the helicopter, and Jesse uses a remote detonator to detonate the rest of the dynamite, destroying the facility and preventing a meltdown. And that is the plot of Carnosaur 2. I actually think there's some pretty good pros for this movie. I think the direction by Louis Morneau, or however you say it, is actually pretty good. I liked his the film that he did, Bats, with Lou Diamond Phillips. I can have fun with that movie, and his direction is definitely better than Adam Simon. Even the beginning of the movie has a nice little point of view shot of zooming in up the stairs, and which is probably a point of view of the dinosaur, and it's actually really well done. And you can tell that there's somebody competent behind the camera here, which is nice to see. I also think that he made a good decision. Either he did or the producers, whoever made this choice. They used "Ride of the Valkyries," which was, the song from Apocalypse Now, and they're even the crew is even flying in the helicopter in one scene in this film, and they start playing on a boombox "Ride of the Valkyries." So you hear so that was fun. That was fun to hear that in the film. And it's because they couldn't really there was no other music for the film really, other than Ride of the Valkyries. But it was nice. It was nice to reuse that for this movie. It added some fun to the film. And another thing that was a lot of fun about the movie was the dialogue. Once again, some really fun bits of dialogue. And this time, the screenplay is written by a different writer. It's written by Michael Palmer. And he has a lot of fun lines as well, just like the first movie. You can tell that the people who are writing these movies are having a good time with these projects. And I even wrote down some more lines of dialogue because I wanted to make sure I got them all. So during the beginning, where you have the dinosaurs attacking the repository or whatever, and this one guy's working at the communication station. They're like, Walker, he's gone missing. We can't hear from him. Walker, that loser, he's probably jerking off. And then I really like Miguel A. Nunez Jr. in this as Moses. He's a lot of fun, actually. For the first time you see him, Monk plays this music really loud and wakes him up. And he just gets pissed. And he's all like, "You Guns N' Roses looking bitch!" Next time, this will be yours. It'll be yours. And then there's another scene where this guy, he works at this diner, and he thinks that there's some coyotes around, so he's trying to intimidate him, brush him off with a broom, and then he's like, next time it'll be a shotgun. And then there's another fun line when the guys are getting debriefed on their mission. Monk is like, oh, it's probably nothing. It's probably a bunch of college dudes with their peckers in their hands. And I like the scene where when they're flying into the facility, and they're playing rock paper scissors, and Miguel and Nunez Jr. one of them just flips the middle finger. So that's pretty fun. Rock paper scissors middle finger. And there was a really fun line where Monk flips off Moses. I was like, ah, fuck. And then Moses is all like, is that your sperm count? Or is that your IQ, dick? So that was a good, that was a good one-liner. It's like, fuck you. It's like, is that your sperm count or your IQ, dick? And then one of the girls, they bring in the kid, and Moses says, like, how'd you have a kid already? Either you're part rabbit or you're mighty hoish. And so that was a lot of fun. And he dies though. Too. It's really too bad. I wish he lived longer because he was a lot of fun. And even when the dinosaur is fighting them, he's all like, "It's on now." He's like, "It's on now." At least he dies fighting. At least he died fighting. And then there was another final fun line of dialogue where one guy's talking about, they're just randomly talking about some stuff, and one of the guys says, I'm Bigfoot, and I'm Bigfoot. I think it's Monk. I'm Bigfoot, and she's the Loch Ness Monster. And the girl replies back, she's like, call me Nessie. And then you have the final one-liner from the kid at the end of the movie, which I had fun. It's so dumb, but it's so funny. It's so bad, it's good, really. Before he shoves the T-Rex into the whole 200-foot hole, he's like, eat this, Barney. So yeah, you definitely know what you're in for when you see a film like this, but I don't know. I had a lot of fun with the dialogue in this movie. Not all the lines worked, but a decent amount of them I did enjoy. And there's some decent performances too. I thought John Savage did a good job. He had this New Yorker accent, which it reminded me of Raphael from the Ninja Turtles movie, from the 1990 film. I half expected him to say, hey Mikey, can you crunch any louder? I can still hear out of this one. So he did have this New Yorker accent, which is a lot of fun. And I thought his performance wasn't that bad either. Cliff DeYoung did a good job of what he was asked to do. Rick Dean, I had fun with as Monk. He was a fun character. He's pretty much the film's Hudson. In a way, this movie is pretty much Aliens, but with a low budget and dinosaurs, which I'll get into that in the cons section because it is a bit too much like Aliens at moments. You have Miguel and Nunez Jr. had a lot of fun with as Moses. He's only in the film for a little bit, but he definitely does make his time count. And I actually thought I thought Ryan Thomas Johnson was actually pretty decent in terms of performance. I've seen worse. I thought it wasn't unlikable. I liked him all right. And it had some good creature effects. Once again, another film that John Carl Buechler and his effects company did the effects for this film, and I think they did a pretty good job with the creature effects. Some really good bits of gore. One of the death scenes is one of the girls. She gets her arm bitten off and then gets her guts ripped open by the dinosaur, and a pretty good effect. You have a good gore effect where a guy gets his head bitten off by a T-Rex. So there's definitely a decent amount of good gory bits in this movie. And speaking of those, I just want to there's a little bit of behind the scenes sort of stuff on the finale, and I did like the finale too with the kid with the forklift going up against the T-Rex. And the 16-foot-tall Tyrannosaurus Rex robot from the first film was actually reused in this movie. And in the original film, the robot had frequently broke down and performed so poorly that its use was only limited to a few shots. Despite budget constraints, Magical Media Industries, John Carl Buechler's company, did manage to improve the robot T-Rex so that it could be used more extensively for the battle scene in which the dinosaur fights the forklift. However, the robot was ill-suited to stunt work, such as the shots of the creature ramming the forklift, so miniatures and hand puppets were again used frequently, as in the first film. Which I actually didn't mind that. I thought it could be a lot worse. That's all I gotta say. It could be a lot worse. So yeah, those are my pros for Carnosaur 2. Now, when it comes to cons for this film, there's also a few that definitely do prevent the film from being a real classic for me, and that is here are my cons for the film. Lack of memorable score. It's just noise. There's really nothing to this score. The most memorable thing about it is Ride of the Valkyries, and that's not even anything that's an original composition. Any bit of music that's original composition in this is completely forgettable. It doesn't add anything to the movie. It doesn't add any mood. It doesn't add nothing to the film. It's might as well just be dead air. The screenplay, there are some good lines of dialogue. I'll give it that. Michael Palmer did a good job writing fun lines of dialogue, but it's pretty much just an Aliens ripoff. It really is. You have a community, a small community that gets wiped out by something. A team of people come in to investigate it. You have one guy who's kind of an ass, who's the leader of the expedition, and he has you think he might have some ulterior motives, but you find out he's not Burke. But they could have easily went there with Clifty Young, but they didn't. And you have just note for note certain scenes are just aliens. Like they can't get out of the facility away from the dinosaurs because the helicopter pilot, she gets eaten by a raptor who snuck into the plane. A helicopter, not really the plane, but snuck into the helicopter and ate her. And the helicopter crashes in a pretty shitty effect. And I do like Luis Moreau's direction for the most part, but use of slow-mo on this was a little bit too much, especially with the helicopter crash. It just made it look even faker. And so the helicopter crashes, and Monk says, "Oh man, what are we gonna do now?" And I'm like, I half expected him to just say, "Oh man, game over, man, game over." But no, he doesn't go there. But he does go with other Hudson lines. Because when the not really the T-Rex, but when the Raptors are using their smarts and intelligence to set off the traps, the explosive traps with the dynamite, he's like, they can't do that. They're lizards, man. They're lizards. Like they're animals, man. They can't cut off the power. They're animals. Yeah, it's totally aliens. Even the kid, they come in the facility. The only survivor is a kid, but this time it's a boy instead of a teen, like a preteen boy instead of a little girl, Newt. Um, so it's definitely like aliens in that regard. You have kind of a short showdown with a forklift. The power loader is pretty much a forklift, so this time it's a real forklift versus a T-Rex instead of an alien queen. Um, you have I'm trying to remember if there's any other similarities to aliens. I think that's pretty much it, really. It's you have this team and they go and investigate something. There's no survivors except the boy, and you have the helicopter crashes, and oh I forgot. Here's another one. The facility's gonna explode because there's a containment failure, so they gotta get out of there before it explodes. And even a shot at the end where they get in the helicopter, and it's like the end of Aliens where they get away from the explosion just in time. And it, yeah, it's the screenplay is pretty much an Aliens ripoff. But yeah, it could be worse. It could be. I've seen even more egregious Aliens ripoffs, but this is definitely still one of them. This is still definitely an alien ripoff of Aliens. When people say, something like Leviathan is a ripoff of Alien, I disagree. I don't think that's a ripoff of anything. This is a ripoff of Aliens. Totally. Absolutely. There's too many scenes in this that are just totally aliens, but with dinosaurs and a different cast. But yeah. Um, hey, if you're gonna rip off something, hey, rip off Aliens is a great movie. Uh, the pacing and the editing is pretty slow. I mean, not really much happens for a long extended period of time. You're waiting for a gore sequence, you're waiting for an attack. There's not much really other than the girl gets her arm bitten off and guts ripped open, and the guy gets his head bitten off by the T-Rex near the end. But there's a lot of slow parts, and it's only the characters that keep it watchable and a few fun lines of dialogue and so forth. But yeah, the pacing is not that great. And the final fight with the T-Rex of the forklift, which I enjoy, I can enjoy that, but it lasts way too long. And it's in desperate need of an editor. It really needed to be edited down so it could have a little bit more impact and not be as repetitive as it is. But yeah, but other than that, those are all the cons I can think of for this film. I don't think it's really that bad as comparison to a lot of the reviews it gets. IMDb gives it like a 3.2 out of 10. I don't know, I think that's way too low. But yeah, those are my cons for Carnosaur 2. As for my final verdict for Carnosaur 2, I'd say it's a time waster. I'd say it's definitely a so-so mediocre film. I mean, I think it's better than Carnosaur because it doesn't have a shitty ending. It still doesn't make any sense. I forgot to mention how another bad part of the writing where they blow up the facility to stop the containment failure. You do know there's still nuclear warheads in that facility and uranium, so you didn't stop anything. In fact, you just caused an unbelievable explosion that's worse than Hiroshima. And even the screenplay even mentions that don't put the dynamite down there because there's warheads and shit, and it'll cause an explosion worse than Hiroshima. And then the movie ends and it's an explosion that blow up the facility. I'm like, I could turn my brain off and enjoy this type of junk just like the next guy, but that's really bad. But stuff like that is what prevents the film from being above average for me. But I still had fun with this movie. I still enjoyed it. I still was entertained by the film despite some pacing issues and some bad edits here and there. I'd be lying if I said I didn't enjoy myself. It's not a movie I'd say it's great. I wouldn't say it's really good, but I definitely would say it's average. It's definitely my definition of an average film, which is why it's a time waster for me. So I really don't know what else to say about Carnosaur 2, except if I was going to rate it out of 5 stars, I would give the movie 3. 3 out of 5, exactly what I was saying earlier. It's an average film. It's decent bit of entertainment. Um, I don't think it's as bad as a lot of people make it out to be. It could be a lot worse considering its low budget. I've seen a lot worse films than Carnosaur 2. 3.2 is way too low. I've seen really shitty asylum movies that are worse than this. And yes, I would rather watch this rather than Jurassic World as well because you know what? It has more than one likable character in it. And at least I get some fun with some gore with the T-Rex biting people's heads off and ripping some guts out. But anyway, yeah. Thanks for watching my review of Carnosaur 2, and I will see you guys later. See ya.